Have you ever run into Mien people that you've never met, and the first question they ask you is, where are you from? Followed by, who are your parents and what is your last name? Now, if you're like me, you've probably had to rack your brain around, well, what do other Mien people call my parents? So that way you know how to give them the proper response. Okay, so after you figured out what other Mien people call your parents and you give the response to these Mien strangers that you've just met, did you ever get this feeling like they were trying to use some sort of like GPS triangular system to pinpoint who you are and who your parents are? If so, then you're probably right. Now, what I'm about to share with you lies the secret behind the names of the 12 Mien clans. And once you discover this, it's going to put you on a journey of transforming your life. I know it has for me, and I know it will for you. So, are you ready? Let's go. Alright, so it begins with the Mien child names. I'm talking about the most common names in every Mien family, where the boys have names like Cao and Cheng, or the girls have names like Mei and Pham. Coincidence? Hardly. So now, what if I told you that it was all part of a grand plan? Hang with me for just a second. You see, these names are really important because they're kind of like markers in the tracking system, and it's a really, really good one. So here's an example. Usually the first boy born into a Mien family has the name Cao. That's for the eldest son. Followed by, if there's a second boy, it'll usually be Nai. Now, that isn't always the case, but I'm just going to go with the typical ones here. Now, for girls, the first born daughter is typically a Mei. Or it could be a Mong if the mom's name is Mei. But without getting to the complications with this, let's just stick with Mei for the firstborn girl. Followed by the second, which is usually Nai. Once again, the Nai is like it's a unisex name, like Andy or Aaron for most American names. Okay, so here is the naming chart for most children in most Mien family households. You're gonna see right here at the top, born 1. That's gonna be the first child born, and for the names given to a male, it's going to be either Cao, Pao, or Thon. And then for the females, firstborn, it's going to be Mei or Wang. For the nextborn, secondborn male, it's going to be Nai, A, or Lo. And then for females, it's going to be Nai or Lai. And continuing down to the thirdborn child, for males, it's going to be San. And for females, it's going to be Pham. Now this chart continues to go down, and these are the typical names that you'll find in most Mien households. Now, keep this chart and these names in mind, and especially the rankings, and we're going to dive in a little bit deeper. Got it? Okay, cool. Now let's suppose we want these names to be a little bit more unique, something that's, for you. And let's suppose these names for like Cao and Mei, how do we make that? Well, it's really simple. We add a modifier to it. And this modifier actually is inherited from your parents, specifically your father, your dad's adult Mien name. Now answer these two questions. 1, what is your dad's adult Mien name? And then 2, what is your Mien child name? Now these are already given to you. Okay, so my name is Michael Sei Lee, and my father's adult Mien name is Yi-Zhou. So if you recall that chart earlier that we looked at, I am the third child within my family, so that's San, and that's spelled S-A-N. Now for me to inherit my child Mien name, I take a portion of that from my father's adult Mien name. So his adult Mien name is Yi-Zhou. I'm the third son, so it's San-Zhou. Third son of Zhou. Pretty cool, right? Now, to go a step further, I have brothers. The next youngest brother, which is the fourth son, his name is Su. So if you can guess what his child Mien name is, it's Su Zhou, right? Pretty cool. You could probably look to your siblings for similar names, and it kind of follows this pattern. Now let's suppose we want to make these names even more unique. How would we do that? We will look towards your last name, also known as your Fin, and also we will look into your clan name, which is really the cool stuff. Okay, now every Mien last name contains like a secret path. I kind of like to relate this to an anime I used to watch as a kid called Naruto, and it's a reference to the Will of Fire, and basically means it's how you inherit the legacy of those before you. And the importance of your last name begins with your clan and forms what's called a generational name. To the untrained eye, These names kind of look like Say Li, Say Fong, Say Pan, Say Turn, and all the way up to 12 clans. So first generation for Say Li is Seng, and it's spelled as S-A-E-N-G. That's the first generation of our cycle for Say Li. The second is Fu. The third, which is my father's generation, is Yi. And then the fourth generation, which is my generation, is Zhen. And then the fifth, which is Wen. After it goes past Wen, it resets and goes back to Seng. Cool. So with these generational names, they're actually bestowed upon us before we're ever even born. Now what's really cool about these generational names for the clans is it helps you relate to those around you. For an example, I have cousins that are in my generation, and all of their adult Mien names begin with Zhen, because that's part of the Say Li. Now that's just for the Say Li. If you're Say Turn or Say Chow, there are other paths and other names that go by that, which I'll actually talk about in a later video. But just for now, know that you have a generational name within your path. In fact, you probably know this already. So let me talk about the transition phase. What happens when you go from a child Mien name to an adult Mien name? And the process usually occurs when a child stops receiving a Sip 1, which is kind of like a blessing that a shaman performs. When the child stops getting those, that's when they begin to start using their adult Mien name. Okay, to take it a step back, so my father is a Yi Zhou, that's his adult Mien name, and he's the third generation in the Say Li generational pathing name. And now if I'm the fourth generation, what am I? I am Zhen. And all those in my age group, especially like my cousin, all their adult Mien names begin with Zhen. Now this could be different depending on your last name. If you're Say Turn, Say Chow, Say Pan, or any of the other 12 clans, you have a different pathing name. And later on I'll create a video to talk more about that. But just keep in mind, your name is really unique, and it's truly a powerful way for you to be recognized within the Mien community. So to share a little bit more about this generational name, I'll give you an example. My dad is a Say Li. My cousin's dad, they're Say Li also. Now my dad and my uncle, they're both part of the same generation of Say Li, Yi. My dad is Yi Zhou. My uncle's name is Yi Fo. And then as the fourth generation of Say Li, I'm Zhen Fin. And then my cousin is Zhen Liam. Pretty cool, right? Okay, so I mentioned there that my adult Mien name is Zhen Fin, and I'm a Say Li of the fourth generation. You might be wondering, where did Fin come from? Well, Fin was something that my parents had decided and given to me. That's something that a modifier that they made up. Now, if you don't have one, or if you're not sure what yours is, ask your parents or ask an elder Mien person in your community. They will love to tell you more and share more about this. In fact, it's actually how I got into learning about names, because I asked my great uncle. So just because maybe you've inherited a adult Mien name, you still can keep your child Mien name. In fact, a lot of people still refer to me as San Zhou. And you might have heard your parents be referred by their child name by their best friends and other family members. So keep that in mind. You're not really giving up anything. You just inherit more names, and it gives you more recognition as status. So as a parent, I have a daughter. Her name is Mei, and if you follow the pattern, so my adult name is Zhen Fin. Her full child name and also adult name is Mei Fin. So that's the name that she's given. That's the name that she's inherited. Now for girls, before I get any sort of comments, girls have just one name. It's the one that they're given as a child and the one that they inherit as an adult, and that doesn't change. Okay, so let's recap, because I'm sure that's like a lot of information. So let's break it down so that way it's a little bit more easier. So let's begin with my father. My dad is the third generation of Say Li, which begins with Yi. And then he inherits an adult Mien name, which becomes Yi Zhou. Now for me, when I received my child Mien name, it began with inheriting a portion of my father's Zhou, and then also combined with my ranking as a third child within my family, which is San, S-A-N. So my full child name in Mien is San Zhou. As I grew up, I inherited a adult Mien name, which began with my generation, fourth generation. I'm the fourth generation of Say Li, which begins with Zan. And then my parents gave me the other portion, Fin. So my full adult Mien name becomes Zan Fin. And now that I have a daughter, her name is Mei. Her full child Mien name becomes Mei Fin Se Li. So I hope that makes it a whole lot easier and clarifies a lot of that. So now you're probably wondering, what does this all mean? And I want to share this with you. This naming system is ancient, it's unique, and it's a really powerful way for us to track down our lineage as Iu-Mien people. Over the centuries, we've migrated all over the world, but this naming system, it's what keeps us all together. You can almost think like it's a 23andMe. It's like a genealogical tracing system. And this system, it really helps us to identify our kinship. It shows respect to our elders and those before us. So I just want you to know that this all serves a higher purpose, and you belong to a greater purpose. So at the beginning of this video, I asked you about your encounters, meeting Mien people out there that have no relation to you initially, until they start to ask about where you're from, who are your parents, and getting to know you. But in these encounters, have you ever felt like it has brought you closer the moment they were able to pinpoint who you were by finding out who your parents were, or who your uncle was, or maybe your grandparents, right? For me, it really helped to become closer with that person. And it's kind of crazy. It's like a trust network. And I believe that this helps us unite. So do you remember that purpose finding grand plan that I mentioned earlier? Well, now it could just be me, but I believe that this system, all of this whole naming convention, this kind of like GPS tracking, is to help us find our way back. And back, you might wonder where? Well, I believe it's to help us find our homeland. And if you haven't heard about it, well, this homeland, actually, there's a story behind it. And I'll drop a link below this video so you can find out more about it. But just know that our history as Mien people, Iu-Mien people, it dates back to over 1,500 years old. And it's likely maybe even older than that. And it begins with a story about a hidden cave, about a cave just big enough for an ox to pass through, and an ox horn that was cut into 12 pieces. The 12 pieces representing the 12 Iu-Mien clans that have created the foundation of where we are today. So now that you know about that, I just want to share with you, and this is your turn, right? Find out what your child Mien name is, what your adult Mien name is if you're male, and what is your generational name. And you can ask your parents about this, you can ask an elder within your community about this, and once again, they'd be happy to share more with you. In fact, they probably don't even know how to approach you with this, but it's gonna be up to you. It's crazy. I'm recording this video, there's thunder and rain outside. Perfect setting for our brand, BAONG. If you haven't heard about BAONG, check us out. I'll drop a link below to our website, BAONGFAMILY.com, which kind of shares a little bit more about Iu-Mien culture and where we're going, what our mission is. But know that let's unlock our Mien origins together, help you find your identity as a Mien person, and comment below if you thought this video was helpful, and subscribe and like. Thanks so much. Gotta go.